So, good afternoon. And this afternoon at the Who Are You podcast, we're privileged to have the Intelligence Forum's Who Are You podcast, I should say. Privileged to have Julie Robinson, the CEO of the Independent Schools Council. And I might just take a liberty before we dig into Julie about why do we call this the Who Are You podcast? And it simply goes back to the mid-1980s when I was listening to the radio and Peter Townsend from The Who was interviewed, and he was asked a question: what would you like to do if you were not a musician? And he at this interview said, I'd like to be a journalist. I love the Fleet Street aroma and everything that goes with it. And then I thought to myself, so when he wrote that tune, Who Are You? It's probably about something totally different. But I like to think it was him interviewing people and drilling down into who they are. So here we are today at the Who Are You podcast. Julie Robinson, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Harry. It's a great honour to be talking to you.
So would you start by telling us about your professional journey to where you are today?
With great pleasure. I am a state-educated person who found myself in independent schools as a teacher. And I assumed that's where it might well end. But I had great opportunities and became a prep school head. I was a head for 11 years across 2 different prep school headships. And then my next role was supporting and training heads at IAPS, which is the Prep Schools Association. Now, Harry, I am the CEO for the Independent Schools Council, a role I've held since 2015, which is 10 years now. And I like to think of myself now as an ambassador for those independent schools and their communities from whence I came.
And what work does the Independent Schools Council actually undertake? What do you do in there?
Yes, we're an umbrella body, and we have 7 main associations who support and train heads and bursars and governors between them, and also 4 affiliates representing Scotland, Wales, overseas and boarding schools. Altogether, this means I'm representing 1,400 schools UK-wide, and that's 600,000 pupils in those schools, often referred to as the 6% nationally. What we do is we lobby for freedom of choice in education. We rebut untruths, and that means I'm speaking quite often in the national media. We work with civil servants and politicians on education policy matters that affect our sector. And very importantly, we collect data to form insights about the true nature of the sector, because we suffer from a slightly problematic stereotype always looming over us. In 2024 to 2025, all of this came together rather in a very intense period during which we supported a judicial review challenging VAT on school fees.
And in your view, how does the independent sector and the state sector best work together?
I'm a great advocate for collaboration and positive relationships between all kinds of schools, because where someone in, say, a state school is friendly with someone in an independent school for any reason, that leads to a level of understanding of each other to appreciate where every school has something to give, something to share, and something to gain from collaborative projects. And importantly, these need to be mutual, not just a case of one school giving something to another school. It's got to be through mutual respect. And then so many things become possible, responding to local needs across all of those schools. And potentially, and we do see this around the country, groups of schools, even universities as well, can work together with local children's services to support such a wide range of things, from teacher training, mental health, AI, specialist teaching, perhaps spreading musical opportunities, creative arts. You could make an orchestra together. There's so many different things that our schools can effectively do, as long as those relationships are right in the first place. And in fact, this afternoon, I'm touring a big school in Wimbledon with the local MP to see a wide range of partnerships that happen on a Friday afternoon with many local primary school pupils. So the teachers bring those pupils in. They have sporting and creative and performing arts opportunities, which are run actively by the pupils from this school. So there are opportunities all round, and it's very exciting. So much is possible.
Brilliant stuff, actually. So, in your leadership role, to get where you have, and now that's not by chance. So, who have been the motivators for you, and who's been the inspiration for you? And that's a very personal question, but I'm interested in that.
I'm happy to answer that question because I am forever grateful to him, and he's no longer with us, which is terribly sad. But the trajectory of my career was entirely changed by a man called Reverend John Spencer, former headmaster of Penthorpe. And he was doing an interim headship in the school where I was director of studies and teacher. And the appointment was coming up, and it was him who encouraged me to apply. So you might say, because of his belief in me and his support and encouragement, I developed leadership aspirations, ambitions in the first place. I was really nervous, like I think most people. I was worried about public speaking, the level of responsibility. Could I do it? He gave me the confidence to have a go. And so he made entirely the difference to my career. In terms of the broader mission, though, I would say that the big motivating force encapsulated in that is really wanting to make a difference to support education for children. So it's a mixture of, I think, the person and the mission coming together.
Another question I'd like to ask is empathy in education. Give us your perspective on how important that might be.
Well, Harry, you're talking to someone whose personality type, if you like, is cheerleader. So I think I can't help myself see everything through the lens of relationships with other people. So as a teacher, you have to understand where the individuals around you are at, what their starting point is, and how to influence them to move forward independently with your help as a facilitator. In my current job, which I think is still education, I deal with so many different people, some of whom are fundamentally opposed to the independent school I represent. So if I didn't make the efforts to understand their point of view, we wouldn't really get anywhere with our discussions. So for me, it's absolutely key to empathize, understand, walk in the shoes of, see the viewpoint of other people you're dealing with. And I think that's part of our journeys through life, whoever we are, but in education in particular, in order to motivate, inspire, and influence positively, you need to have a high level of understanding. And I think that comes through empathy.
I think it's not for me to be judge and jury, but that's a very powerful tool to understand the other person's perspective, or to at least listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are you actually currently dealing with the political headwinds? We're a non-political forum, but nonetheless, you're dealing with it. It's clear to see. But how are you dealing with it? You explained in one way that you're listening, but elaborate.
Yeah, so we're an apolitical organisation, which just unfortunately very often, because education is such an important sort of vote-winning theme, and politicians tend to be very involved in education policy, it is unfortunate that independent education specifically has become a wedge issue between different parties, but we are not politically affiliated either. So we took very seriously this decision to mount a judicial review. We felt it was important to bring out the truth of a policy that had been characterized in one way, and we felt actually it was not a good policy. At the same time, it is so important for us to work with everyone we can for the greater good. So in terms of general headwinds, schools, like most small organizations at the moment, have had to come to terms with dealing with really difficult and challenging policies that have added to financial strain. That's a huge focus at the moment. schools run by charities lost their business rates relief. So business rates relief has gone now for that type of charity. VAT has been added on parents' school fees at a rate of 20% straight away this January 2025, suddenly. So we can see the pressure that puts on school leaders and parents in our sector. But of course, at the centre of all of it is thousands and thousands of children and their education and wanting optimism for their future. So ISC's role is to continue to raise awareness of the positive effects of what are being called private schools across our country. And that's where we have a hugely important role against those headwinds. We can demonstrate the increased capacity afforded by the existence of our schools, the education specialism and training that independent schools provide. We can demonstrate the good we do in developing educational opportunities in this broad range of things. AI, oracy, a big area is special needs provision. There are 140,000 children with special needs in independent schools. So we feel, given the landscape and the turbulence in the background, it's more important than ever for us to fight for our schools, striving to provide great education. And also we think parents deserve to have plenty of choice locally in terms of great schools, great state schools and great independent schools to choose from. So it's our job to demonstrate the good and the helpful aspects of our schools for all of those children. So there are new policy changes we're communicating over. We continue to collect data and track trends that show the effect of VAT on fees and other policies, the combined effect really of all these tax changes. And we feel keenly the duty to champion schools and education. Always hanging over us is this stereotype, this popular stereotype about private schools. And it's true to say that the parents are not all super wealthy, and we need to run campaigns to promote partnership working that we were talking about, and demonstrate these are friendly, positive schools, and quite a few of them are much more accessible than you might realise.
Well, I really do want to thank you profusely for today. I would ask one last question, and that is, just one last question before we close, and that is, what would you like to achieve? And you've achieved so much, but is there anything left on the list that you would like to achieve in the future?
Yeah, it's so simple, really. I came in with this aim to demonstrate that independent schools are not what people might assume them to be. And sadly, the kinds of schools we're seeing struggling at the moment are the lower fee, local, very small schools who are just so accessible and so family friendly, part of their communities. So if it were one thing, I'd want the public at large to understand that independent schools are so diverse, so very different. There's something for everyone in them. Some of the fees are much, much lower than you might assume. And just sort of get to know your local independent school, you will find it's a friendly, helpful place, and that independent schools deserve a positive place as part of the educational landscape and school choice in the UK. We're a great export, you know. We're going to go on to provide really strong educational opportunities and share those. We're determined to carry on to do good. But I'd just like it to be understood more broadly by members of the public who might never have experienced an independent school, that we are not necessarily that stereotype. Give us a chance to be part of the broader picture.
Julie Robinson, thank you very much indeed for this interview. It's been a tremendous honour and pleasure. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Harry.